What's up guys, welcome to your 71st Android tutorial for the new Boston. And in this tutorial we're basically going to refine kind of what we've done and also get kind of a desired result like I showed you with the OnTouch method. So the first thing I want you guys to do is go into the myBringBackSurface class and change our isRunning right when it's started here to false. Because again, our thread is going to go through this onResume method before it actually starts our thread, and that's where we're actually going to change, our isRunning to true. So not too big of a deal there, but then we go into our Surface class. What we're going to do is we're going to implement the OnTouch listener. So we're going to say implements OnTouch listener, just like we did with OnClick listener. The difference between OnTouch listener and OnClick listener is basically we can attach this to a view just like the OnTouch or on the click listener, but this has a touch down right when you touch the screen or touch whatever object you set this OnClick listener to. Right then is down, and then there's a move when your finger is like pressed down and moving around on the screen, and also when you release or when you let off of your touch there. So we can kind of find those three events as well. And then what we have to do is just say add implement methods, and there we go. Here we have everything set up for the most part. The only other thing we want to do is we want to set something to be looking for a touch method right here. And what we're going to have do that? Well, our surface view, because our surface view is going to take up the whole screen, or it's the whole canvas, so we want our touch event to be accessible by the whole canvas for the most part. So all we're going to say is our surface view dot set OnClick list or OnTouch listener, just like when we did with OnClick listener, and then we just say this because again we're implementing the OnTouch. Now what we can do is we're basically going to touch screen and we're going to get the X and the Y value of that information and process it and kind of handle it as well. So what I did is I set up a float, and you want a float value of an X and a float value of a Y, and then that's what we're going to kind of define. Now we're also going to set up this X and Y to equal something initially, so X equals 0 and Y also will equal 0, and then we're going to change it within our OnTouch method. So we go into within this this method, because when our surface is touched, it's going to call this method, and it's going to give us which view was touched, which is our our whole surface, and then which event, whether it be a down, a move around, or a release of some sort. We're just going to set our X and Y values. So we're going to say X equals, and we're going to say event. Wait, is it event? Yeah, event, I'm sorry. Or whatever your second argument is, which is your motion event. We're going to say, and as you can see here, it's labeled event. So we're going to say event dot, and then we go get X, which is a really nice method because it's going to return the X in pixels for the most part, the X value of what was pressed or where is pressed on the screen. And then also we just say Y is equal to event dot get Y, and there we go. We have our X and Y values every time the screen is touched, and it does that through grabbing the event and getting the value for the X, and then we set it up to this variable. So that's probably it for this tutorial. Pretty quick. It's still not doing anything yet. The next tutorial we're going to piece everything together and get our application working. So make sure you watch that, and I'll catch you guys then. Peace. What's up guys? Welcome to your 72nd Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is kind of link those things together that we set up and finally get a little bit of drawing action to happen here. So the first thing I want you guys to do is go into the myBringBackSurface class and grab the entire class and cut it. So don't grab your imports or your package, but everything else, grab that, cut it, and then go into the graphics surface class. And we're going to paste that within within our graphics class here. So one bracket from the bottom, that's where we're going to paste. And so just hit Control V and paste. The reason we did that is because we set up these X and Y values within this class, and we said that this whole class, the graphics surface class, can use those values. So if we paste that other class within this class, we can still have access to the X and Y, which is what we're going to want. And then the other thing we can do is actually delete this my bring back surface class, just to do something a little different. Having a class within another class is another example, or another reason I did this. And then there we go. Now what we need to do is, since we defined what our X and Y is going to be, when we click our view, for the most part, we want to kind of draw a bitmap at that location. So we're going to do that within our canvas here, and after our background, after we draw our background, and we're going to say if expression mark or exclamation mark X exclamation mark equals 0. So basically this is checking if X is not equal to 0, do whatever is within, whatever is below for the most part. We're going to have two different things that it's looking for. So we're going to say and to do the and statement, you do two and signs, and then we say Y is not equal to 0 as well, because again we set X and Y equal to be 0 right at the beginning, and we don't want to draw that ball right when our application starts. So that's the only time we're going to draw the ball, is if the X and Y is not equal to 0. So there we go. Now we're going to set up our bitmap. This is kind of review. We're going to call this like test, something like that, and import bitmap, and then again from the bitmap factory, can't spell, dot decode resource, and then for this one we say get resources, like use the get resource method for the first parameter. For the second parameter, it's our actual bitmap that we want to decode. So we're going to say r.drawable.greenBall, and then finish off our statement. So now that we have our bitmap set up, all we have to do is draw it to the canvas. So we're going to say our canvas name, and then we're going to say draw bitmap, and we're going to use this one that takes a float for the left and the top and the paint as well. So we're clicking that, and then for a bitmap we're going to use the test that we just set up here. For the left we're going to use our X value. Again, that's going to be the information that we get from the touch that we set up in that method up above, and then for the top it's going to be the Y value, and for the paint it's going to be null. Now we basically have everything set up for our little for our first little painting to the canvas here. So I'm just going to run it, make sure everything works for the most part, and in the next tutorial we're just going to fine-tune everything. I'll show you some of the problems that we're having right now within the way this application is set up, but I just want to show you that it is kind of working for the most part. So we're going to go to our graphics surface class. As you can see, the ball is not drawn yet, but when we click, the ball is drawn. And again, it's being drawn by the top left corner of our bitmap. So I'll show you how to fix that in the next tutorial, as well as when we click and hold and drag, our ball is not following us for the most part. So we're going to solve that issue, which isn't going to be a difficult issue at all. But I just wanted to show you what it looks like now. So I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Peace. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 73rd Android tutorial, where we're going to get rid of some of these errors. I mean, they aren't really errors, but when we click, we want it to paint in the center of this ball instead of top left corner. Well, at least make it seem like it's being painted in the center, right where we touch. The other one is we want to be able to drag this object around and follow our cursor when we're touching the screen still. So let's get rid of our first bitmap problem. And what we're doing now is we're just basically getting the location, and then we're painting the top left corner at that location. But what we want to do instead is, for example, if I click right in the center of the screen, it paints our bitmap a little lower and a little more to the right. So what we're going to do, right here is our X and our Y. We're going to take our X minus half of our bitmap width, and then that's going to give us right here it'll paint. And then we're going to do the Y minus half of the height, so we're going to paint here. So basically, here's our X and Y, and then we're going to subtract half of our width of our bitmap, so here, and half of our height, and then we're going to go here. This is the point that's going to give us, and then we're going to draw our bitmap. Again, it's still going to be the top left corner, but it's going to draw it up here, and then our circle is going to be right there. I don't know if that's kind of confusing or not, but let's just do it. So we're going to say minus, and then we take our bitmap, so we're going to say minus bitmap, which we called test, and then we say dot get width for the x value. So we're going to say get width. This is just kind of a common trick that programmers use for the most part. But so think of it just kind of how I explained. It's giving us half of the width of the length of our bitmap, and then we're going to subtract that from the x value. And we're also going to do that for the y value as well. So we're going to say minus test dot get height this time divided by 2. I don't know if that's confusing or not, but I just want to show you guys that because it's pretty common in programming, especially for game programming and bitmaps. And now when we run let's just finish it because the other problem's pretty simple as well. So this OnTouch method, basically it's returning false. So once it gives us our information, it's just going to be like false, I'm done. No more need to check these variables, and we don't want it to do that. We want it to kind of loop through. So instead of saying false, we're going to say true, and that's just going to kind of allow it to keep giving us those numbers for the most part. So that's the simple fix for making the bitmap actually follow our cursor when we're clicked down. Pretty simple. I mean, it's not much of a tutorial, I know, but hopefully you learned something a little bit about the return value for the OnTouch, and as well as kind of that graphics trick. So when we click now, the bitmap appears right in the center for the most part. Yeah, right where we click, it seems like it's appearing right there. And then the other thing we need to do is click and drag. And as you can see now, since we changed that return from false to true, our bitmap is kind of following us along. And in the next tutorial, not quite sure what we're going to do yet. I might do a little, maybe like 1 or 2 more on this graphic stuff, and then we're going to get into something completely different. So I'll catch you guys then. Peace. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 74th Android tutorial for the young buck, also known as the new Boston, or Bucky. What we're going to do now is I decided to do a few more graphics ones just because on my channel a lot of people have been wanting to do game stuff and graphics and all that good stuff. So what I'm going to do is basically nothing too new, but we're going to kind of review, and this is what our application finished product is going to do, is basically when you click, it starts and it creates a bitmap right at our starting point, and as we hold down our mouse, we let go, and it also does another plus right at our end point. So that can be kind of useful to see how, like, if you're launching this ball, we can get those 2 points and use the velocity to launch the ball a certain speed over time. So that's essentially what we're gonna get to. Yeah, I just wanted to show you guys the end result before we actually get into it. So you guys can kind of follow along. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up some more float variables. SX for starting X point, SY for a starting Y point, and then FX for a finishing X point, and FY for our finishing Y point. And again, all we're going to do is just kind of set those all equal to be 0 right at the beginning, because we're going to kind of use the same layout here. So let's do that real quick. Thought that'd be a shortcut, but it really wasn't that much of a shortcut there. So nothing new yet, but basically I want to show you guys what we can do with a motion event. because we did kind of use it, but we didn't really get into too much. So what we're actually going to do now is set up our bitmap first. So let's scroll down to where we set up our first bitmap called test. Let's actually cut that test out of our if loop right here and define it within our onCreate method. So I'm just going to paste that up here, hit Control V, and we define this bitmap. We're also going to want that bitmap to be accessible to both classes that we have set up. So we're going to set up a bitmap variable called test, and then we're also going to call one plus. That's going to be the plus symbol that we're going to use, and then we just need to delete again this bitmap here. Now I'm just going to again copy this line of code. I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but hopefully we aren't doing anything new yet for the most part, and set up our plus bitmap. All we have to do now is change the resource here to our plus image that we have in our drawable folder. So there we go, we have all our bitmaps and all of our initial points set up. Now let's go back into our OnTouch method. And this is where we're going to kind of define, our x and our starting x and our starting y. But first what we're going to do is we're going to use a switch and case, which again we're familiar with. We're going to get kind of the information from what type of motion event it is. So we're going to say switch, and then we're going to say event, because again that's the motion events that's being passed in. We're going to hit dot get action, and that's going to tell us what kind of action's happening at the current moment, because we have this as true, so it's going to keep looping through for pretty much every moment. And then we just need to do a bracket as well and set up our cases. So we're going to say case, and then we're going to refer to the motion event class, and then we can hit dot, and we have the events that can happen. So down is right when we first click. So what we're going to do within this case, we're going to set up our starting x, our start x, and then it's just going to be again equal to event dot get x. Again, kind of review here, and then also our starting y, and that's going to be event dot get y. And there we go, and then all we have to do is say break here, and then we're going to set up our other case, which is going to be the release. So we're going to say motion event dot action up. So type that out, and that's when we're going to let our finger off of the screen, and then we're going to set up our final x, and this is going to be again event dot get x, and fy, our final y, is going to again be event dot get y. So there we go. We're going to kind of have these different x and y values. This one's going to be consistently updating. This one's going to be right when we press down, and this one's going to be right when we press up. So let's just put a break there as well. Now that we have everything set up, we're going to go back within our canvas, and we're going to kind of set up some more of these if statements that we did previously. So I'm going to copy 3 of those, because again we're going to say one is for our starting x if it's not equal to 0, and our starting y is not equal to 0. And then we're also going to do our final y and our final x here. Hopefully this tutorial is not too long, but I mean it's pretty simple. And speaking too fast here. Instead of our test, we're going to do our plus bitmap that we set up at the beginning of the tutorial for both of these. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to get we can still use this kind of equation where we take half of the width and subtract that from our final x. So it's kind of placed right in the center as well. This will be our starting x for this one, and again our plus bitmap, we're going to get half of the width, even though both of our plus and our our test are both 75 pixels by 75 pixels, but that's besides the point. And then again we say starting x and starting y, so we're going to say starting y minus plus half the height as well, and then we're going to do our final y, and again minus half of the plus height. There we go. We're done. Basically this tutorial mainly just went over the different types of motion actions that we can get. Again, we use the switch case to get the action of what type of event it is. We set up the cases to be either down or up. and then when we save it and hopefully run it, we won't get any errors. It's a pretty quick tutorial, but hopefully you guys are starting to understand the graphics and understand just Java in general if you guys are new to that as well. I mean, this probably isn't the prettiest way to code, but it's gonna work for us, so that's fine. And then the next tutorial will actually use those points to kind of animate something. Maybe, I don't know, but see, we get our starting point when we first click. We're still pressed down on the screen, and then when we release up, there's our other plus, which is also right in the center. So hopefully you guys like that tutorial. It's pretty simple, pretty quick, and you guys learn about motion events. I gotta go. Peace. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 75th Android tutorial for the new boss, and again with me, Travis. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically do some simple animation to get that ball kind of shooting in the direction that we want. And obviously, if you guys have done Java programming before or any kind of game programming, you're probably going to look at this tutorial and the next one and be like, what is he doing? It is because what I am going to do is probably terrible programming, but I'm trying to teach you guys the concepts and what you guys need to learn for this. Obviously, I'm probably going to create some kind of a game development series on my channel at my Bring Back, so you guys can subscribe and look forward to that. But you know, for this new Boston series that I'm doing, probably won't get too much into the animation. I just kind of want to show you what's up. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create some more floats. We're going to call one dx and dy for change in x and change in y direction. Then we're also going to create one called animate x and animate y, and then we're also going to create one more called scaled x and scaled y. So a lot of variables there. And now let's set them all up to be equal to 0 at the beginning. So we're just going to say dy equals dx equals dy equals. So what I did is just clip the video, save some time, but basically I just said dx equals dy equals Anna x, Anna y, scaled x, scaled y, and they all are equal to 0. It's kind of setting them all equal to 0 to start with, which is good. So now what we're going to do is we're basically going to go into our our up motion event right here and set up our changes, or dx and our dy. So our dx is going to be the change in the x direction. So what we're going to say is our final x minus our starting x, and that'll give us the change in the x direction. And then we're also going to say dy is equal to our final y and our minus our starting y. And let's say our screen's 400 or 800 pixels by 800 pixels. Basically, this change in x could be up to 800, up to quite a few pixels, like 1,000 or something like that. I don't know the math exactly, but so we don't want it to be that big. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of scale it down. So we're just going to say our scaled x is equal to our dx divided by, like, let's just do 30 and see how that works. Then we're also going to say our scaled y is equal to our dy divided by 30. And there we go. We kind of have our scaled variables set up. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to go into our actual animation. And so what we're going to just quickly do is we're going to copy the one that prints the ball, which was our test, is what we defined there. So we're going to copy that and we're going to paste it when our finals don't equal anything. So we're going to paste that above our x, or actually let's do it below our x, or a plus symbol there. And there we go. Now we're going to print a ball, again just centered. Everything is pretty much the same as how we printed it here, but now it's just going to print when it's finalized. And what we're going to say is we're going to say minus now our Anna x, which is going to be our scale. Did we set that up yet? No. Okay. Basically, this is going to be our animated x, how much it's going to change each time in each direction. So We'll get to what that actually is set to here in a second, but we're also going to set this equal to ani y. And now we just need to set up these variables. And as you can see right now, this is equal to 0 because that's what we set it up to be on create. So after it runs through here, we're going to change it a little bit after this if statement, and we're going to change that value. And so what we're going to say is we're going to say ani x equals ani x plus our scaled x. So again, our scaled x is equal to our displacement in the x direction divided by 30. So this would be that, and then it's gonna, every time it loops through, it's gonna add more to this x direction, which is gonna affect where we paint on our canvas for a bitmap. I don't know if that made quite sense or not, or if this is making sense at all, especially probably isn't, but hopefully you guys kind of are picking up on some stuff, especially the new programmers. This is kind of how you do the animation. Not necessarily, generally you'd want to have some kind of framework that handles all your animations for you, but like I said, I just wanted to show you guys a quick animation. So we aren't quite done. Let's just run it and see what it looks like. Obviously there's going to be quite a few things that we still need to do, and we'll finish up in the next tutorial. But we kind of got the basics down. Very, very basic stuff. So we're going to click, and we're going to let go here, and there we go. Our ball shoots off in that direction. Obviously we still have this printed ball, so we're going to get rid of that. And let's try again. That time it's not shooting. What's going on? Those are kind of the errors that we're going to fix in the next tutorial. So I'll catch you guys then, and have a good one. Alright guys, what's up? Welcome back to your 76th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do is kind of clean up this little whatever this thing is. Right now, once we launch it once, it's not going to launch again, and we still need to get rid of this. So first thing we're going to do is get rid of this green ball that's being left behind. So let's scroll down, and here we go. Basically what's happening is every time our X and Y changes, which happens every time we're pressing the screen, we're creating this green ball. And when we let up, this X and Y value still is equal to something, so it's still going to draw that left behind image that we want to get rid of. And then we also draw our shooting ball that is happening within our if statement that's handling the motion event when we release our finger. So an easy way to fix this is, as you can see, your if-else statement's only going to draw if x and y is not equal to 0. So what we can do is within our, let's scroll up to our motion events, and within our motion up, we can just change that value to 0, because the only time our x and y is going to equal something right here is when we have a touch event on our surface. So once we release, we can set those values back to 0, and nothing's touching the surface, and everything is going to be perfect, I guess. I don't know. X equals Y equals 0. So there we go. We set up the X and the Y value back to 0, so there's no reason for our thread to actually draw this left behind image once we release. So hopefully that concept sticks in. The only other problem is basically when we shoot it once, our animate X and our animate Y variables right here keep going up. They keep going up according to the scaled value. So we need to reset those values each time we launch. So we can do that every time we first click the button. So when our first plus starts. So what we're going to do is when we say go back to our motion events, we're just going to kind of set some variables back equal to 0. And kind of the easy way to do this is just to copy this line here. So we're going to set the dx, the dy, the ana x, the ana y, the scaled x, and the scaled y all back to 0 within our on down motion event. So right here. So we're just going to paste that, and we're good to go. I mean, I'm pretty sure everything's going to start working now, but hopefully you guys kind of understand the that concept. Obviously, like I said before, you don't want to program whole game like working with millions of variables like this. You kind of want to set up your own methods that animate for you and all that good stuff. But I just wanted to kind of show you guys. I don't know exactly what I wanted to show you guys, but I just wanted to show you that, you know, that nothingness, I guess. Okay, and obviously we're getting a problem, but I already solved it because I kind of clipped the video and checked it out. As you can see, it's starting up in this top left corner for some reason every time we launch. And the reason that's happening is actually because we just copied and pasted this without kind of editing or looking over it. Because again, we copied and pasted from our, just our X regular standard touching the screen. But we want to change this to the FX right here. As you can see, when we draw our bitmap test, we're just going to change this to FX and this to FY. And that should fix the problem. Because again, every time we touched, our X and our Y value were set to 0, and then it's trying to draw it from that 0 location. So that should fix that, hopefully. Okay, and see, now we're almost done, guys. This is just part of the debugging process here. As longer you shoot, the faster the ball goes, so that's good. Everything's working. But the only problem is when we click to start a new ball launch, down here this ball is still being drawn. So we got to fix that problem real quick. See what's going on there. Shouldn't be a big deal. Basically what's happening is we want to set this, our FX, equal to 0 now when we start clicking. So we're just going to do that real quick up here. So again, within this statement we can just say FX equals FX equals FY. And now that will set our FX and FY values back equal to 0 every time we start a new down action. So therefore it won't draw, and then it won't draw that that bitmap that was being left over there. So hopefully everything's working now and we can be done with this animation stuff. Again, if you guys want to learn more about game development and more of a well-structured kind of a gaming development system, I'm probably going to create something on my channel, which is youtube.com/mybringback. So you guys can check that out. I haven't created it yet, so it might take a while, but there we go. I mean, it's not that cool, but whatever. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Peace. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 60 or 78th tutorial. Let me check if that's right. 77th tutorial for the new Boston. So basically what we're going to do in this tutorial is something really simple. Basically it's real quick, real easy. Last thing we're going to do for this graphics surface class, I know I told you guys we were done with that, but since I'm going to release this app on the market for you guys to download, some of you guys might already have downloaded it if you are living in the future, because then it would already be on the marketplace, and this video would be made in your past. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's too late. But basically we want to be conscious of slower devices that will download our app from the marketplace. So how we can kind of utilize our thread and make it use less processing speed so slower devices can run at kind of the same rate as higher devices. We want to set up kind of a frames per second atmosphere when we work with animation or game development, because as of now within this OnTouch method is basically the only thing that's kind of going as fast as it can, because we have this return true here. It's just cycling through and updating, and like sweating, and we're like, hey man, you want some water? He's like, no, I gotta do this, man, get out of my way. And you know, using all the processing speed it can, we kind of want to be like, hey man, just sleep for a little bit. Yeah, you're like, sleep, we already know how to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple concept, but when working with game development, it comes in very beneficial to have a set frame rate that you work with. And kind of the concept, or kind of how to create a frame rate, is just doing some simple calculation. For example, if we want to have a frame rate of about 60 frames per second, all we have to do is take 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second, divided by our frame rate that we want to achieve, so 60, and that would equal, you know, 16.66666666667 frames, or I mean, that's the sleep time that we want to have. But we're going to be even more generous and just say sleep, or thread dot sleep, and then we're going to say like 50 instead of 16 or 17, something like that. So this will give us a frame rate of 20 frames per second for the most part. And all we have to do now is, again, surround it with a try and catch. So just hover over and say surround with try and catch, and it sets it up for us very nicely. Again, this is within our OnTouch method. And that's going to allow, again, our application just to sleep every once in a while, you know, not use all the processing speed that it needs, and it's not really going to affect, you know, the way our application runs. For the most part, it's just going to save some of that processing speed. I know this tutorial is pretty much pointless, but you know, the frames per second is an important concept for you game developers that you want to consider in the future. But as you can see, it doesn't really affect how our application runs for the most part. It actually makes it run faster because we have more processing speed, and it doesn't really affect the performance. So hopefully, I don't know, this tutorial is just pathetic. I'm sorry guys, but again, frames per second is an important concept. I'm just gonna leave it with that because I need to go to bed, and we're gonna get into an awesome topic in the next tutorial. So awesome, in fact, I don't even know what it's gonna be about yet. So look forward to seeing you guys then, and have a good one. Peace. What's up guys, welcome to your 78th Android tutorial for the new Boston, again with me, Travis. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're basically going to set up a WakeLock. Now, what is a WakeLock? Well, let's say we have our activity open and it's running, and the person's just staring at this activity on their phone for like 5 seconds. Basically, it's going to make our activity back screen dim, and then if still no activity is happening, it's going to actually lock our phone to save some of the battery power. But for example, if we want an activity like this where there's no user interface and we just want them to stare at this for 3 hours, or until their battery dies, you know, hypnotize them with something like this, we want to make sure that our phone's background won't dim and actually shut off to save that battery power. So we're going to basically set up a WakeLock so it won't do that. And it's pretty simple. I know I promised you guys, or told you guys we were going to do something awesome in this tutorial. Well, I thought we should save the awesomeness for, you know, later down the road, because I'm supposed to be teaching you guys kind of the basics, so I thought I should just stick to that. But we're going to add our WakeLock to this activity, so that was called our graphics class. So just open that up, and here's our graphics class. All we're going to do is before our onCreate, or before our onSuper, our super method is called right here, onCreate. This is where we're going to set up our WakeLock. So I don't know if you guys want to leave a comment, just WakeLock, something like that. Who knows? But that's where we're going to set this up. Now we do this through the Power Manager because, again, the WakeLock kind of saves battery power, so that's held within the Power Manager class, where we can, you know, get the context from that class. So we're going to say Power Manager, and then we're just going to call this PM for Power Manager or something, and then we have to import Power Manager. And what we're going to do is we're going to cast our Power Manager here, and then we're going to say get system service. And then within this parameter, we're going to get the context called power service. So we're going to say context dot power service. Now that's basically just getting the Power Manager set up for us. And the only other thing we have to do is set up our WakeLock now. So let's just say WakeLock. We can establish, we can just say WakeLock here. And then we're going to call this WL for WakeLock. And then again, we just have to import this. It's a pretty simple tutorial. It's not really, it's just something else you guys can use as a resource as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to refer to our Power Manager that we just set up, which was PM, and then we're going to say dot new WakeLock. As you can see, it takes flags and a tag within the parameters. And as you can see over here, it kind of shows us how to set up the WakeLock. This is basically all we're going to do right here is this example for the most part, and then also we can acquire and release our WakeLock because we want to release it when we don't need the WakeLock anymore. So let's set that up. And then for our flags, what we're going to say is we're going to refer to again the Power Manager class, and we're going to say full WakeLock. So that's just going to leave our screen completely fully awake the whole time for the most part. And then for our tag, we can just set this up as whatever. So there we go. I mean, the tag can be anything you guys want to describe that WakeLock as. There we go. Now we have our WakeLock set up. Again, we need to kind of basically start our WakeLock when our activity starts. So what we can do again is just something like WL.acquire to start it. That's what's actually going to start our our WakeLock here. And also we can release it. So we're just going to set up our release as well. So we're just going to hit right click, and then we're going to add the onPause method, and that's where we're going to release our WakeLock. So again, just go to override methods and onPause right there, and then we're just going to say WL.release. And as of now, again, it's not referring, it doesn't know what this WL is because we established it in this class. So we're just going to copy this here and then set it up above our class. So it's kind of referring to the same WL. And there we go. I mean, we're pretty much done. The only other thing you guys might want to do is set up an onResume method and put this acquire within the onResume method. That's just an option you guys can use. This will work as well at the moment. But if we ever come back to the activity where it resumes, you probably want to acquire the WakeLock within that onResume method. So there we go. We're pretty much done with this. The only other thing we need to do is we need to add a permission. And again, we're just going to do it the simple way with this permission tab here in the Android manifest. So just click that, and then we're going to say add permission. I'm sorry, uses permission. When didn't seem right there. We're just going to say uses permission, and we're going to search for WakeLock. If I can, there we go. Search for WakeLock right here, and then we can access the Power Manager and set our WakeLock. Otherwise, it won't work if we don't use that permission. So just save that, and we're good to go. We will have a WakeLock now. So hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Wasn't super awesome, but it could become beneficial for your application. So peace, guys. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to your 79th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically work with the SoundPool class, because I talked about this quite a few tutorials ago, because again, we've used media player, which is for the longer sounds, but when we use explosion sounds, gunshots, short audio clips, we want to use the SoundPool class. I'll kind of talk about how that's beneficial and why we do that in this tutorial as well, or maybe the next one. I'm not for sure how long this is going to take. Shouldn't take too long here, but just set up a new class called Sound Stuff and get it going within your menu class, within that array, and also within your manifest. Extends activity, on create, nothing new here, and then we're just going to create a new view, and we're just going to call this V for our view, and we're going to say new view, and we're going to pass in the context for this, and that's just going to create a new view for us. And now what we're going to say is just something like gather my thoughts here, v.onClick listener, because we're going to have basically whenever they touch the screen, we could say on touch listener as well, but we're going to do OnClick listener, and then we're just going to say this, and then we're going to let this activity implement the OnClick listener so we can use the method there. And so then all we have to do is add the implement methods, and we have our OnClick method. Again, nothing new. And we're just going to say set content view for this view that we just set up here. It's just going to take up the whole screen, and it has a click listener attached to it. So we're going to say view. And there we go. We have our activity set up. Now let's set up our actual SoundPool class. So what we're going to say, we're going to go above this method here for our SoundPool, and we're just going to say SoundPool, and we're going to call the SoundPool object SP, and then just import our SoundPool, and we're going to set up this SP to be equal to new SoundPool object, and within the constructor or within these parameters to send back, we're going to say 5. Basically this first parameter, well, I'll show you after we type it out. And then for the second parameter, we're going to say audio manager dot stream music, and that'll just be the way that we're going to stream the music. And then we're just going to hit 0 for the third parameter. And there we go. We have our SoundPool object set up. Now basically if I hover over here, you can see it takes in the 3 parameters. Max stream, that's going to say how many we're going to allow, how many sounds we're going to allow at the same time to be able to be playing. So we're going to allow up to 5 explosions. And this clip is probably at, I don't know, half a second, third of a second, I don't know. It's really short. So if there's 5 explosions, that's probably quite a bit. But this just kind of handles, we don't want to have billions of sounds going all at once. It kind of handles how many streams you can have. So we're going to allow 5. And the next type is the way that we want to stream the audio, and just the normal audio manager for this example for game applications will normally use stream music. So that's what we're going to use. And the third parameter, it's the sample rate. Basically right now it doesn't have any effect, so set 0 to default. That third parameter means nothing right now because Android developers haven't really set that up yet in the SDK. The next thing we want to do is we want to actually access the sound from a resource, which is our explosion.ogg. So let's get that set up. So we're going to say our explosion, and this is going to be an int. Okay, so let's set this up here. We're going to say int explosion, and there we go. Now we're going to define it down here. Is that how you spell explosion? I don't know. If I spelled that wrong, I'm sorry, but for some reason it looks wrong. And then we're just going to say explosion, then we're going to refer to our SoundPool object that we just created, sp dot, and we're going to say load. And there's a few different ways to load. If you guys save the sound within your assets folder, you can use this assets file descriptor and set the priority, or if you have a string path, you can use that as well. And since we're loading from the resource folder, we're going to use the ID, we're going to use this third load, which takes context, the ID, and the priority. And the priority basically has no effect as well, and it says use the value of 1. use a value of 1 for future capability. So we're just going to click that there. For the context, we're going to say this. The ID, we're going to say r.raw.explosion. And for priority, again, it told us to say 1 for future capability, or and for the third one, we're just going to say 1. So there we go. We have that explosion now set up. Now all we have to do is we have to just basically play our explosion. So we're going to say anytime our view is clicked, we're going to use this OnClick method to play our explosion. So we're just going to say explosion, and then we're going to say dot play. Why isn't it loading here? Okay, we're going to say actually our SoundPool now down here. So we're going to say our SoundPool dot and now play. And as you can see, it takes an int, which is basically that explosion that we set up, left volume, a right volume, a priority, which is, 0 is the lowest priority, loop, 0 equals it's not going to loop, and -1 says it's going to loop that sound forever, which we don't want. And then also the rate of playback. 1 is normal, but you can also go down to 0.5 or 2 if you want to change the rate that it plays back. So we're just going to click this method. For the sound ID, we're going to say explosion. Right volume, we're going to say 1, which is going to be the highest, and the left volume 1 and the right volume 1. The priority, we're going to set to 0. The loop, we want to set it to 0 because we don't want it to loop forever. And the rate, we're going to set to 1 because we want it to play back normally. And there we go. We're pretty much done. The only other thing that we can do, or that we might want to do, is basically this might take a little bit to load, and if we click before this explosion int is loaded, it might give us an error. So we're just going to quickly just say int is going to equal 0, something like that to start out with, and then once it sets this SoundPool load up, it'll change it from 0, and then that's just a way we can do error checking. So we're just going to say if explosion does not equal 0, we're going to play. Otherwise, it won't play that. So there we go. Let's just test it out, make sure everything works. Alright, so let's click on it, and I'll turn up my volume. Alright, it's already up. And then we just, every time we click the screen, up to 5 at a time. So there we go, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Have a good one. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 80th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically set up an OnLongClick listener. I'm not sure if I don't think we've done that before, so that's what this tutorial is going to do. The OnLongClick listener can be used for buttons, but since this sound stuff class only has a view, we're just going to set the OnLongClick listener view to this as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to view.set OnLongClick listener and hit that, and then we're just going to say this as well, and then we're going to implement, or basically let sound stuff, our class, implement the OnLongClick listener as well. So again, it just puts a comma OnLongClick listener, and then we're just going to say add unimplemented methods, and down here is our OnLongClick listener. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up a media player variable or object as well. We're going to call this MP, and then we're going to set this equal to media player dot create context this, and resource is r.id dot, r dot what's going on? I'm sorry, r dot raw dot, and then our background music. And again, we're just going to set this variable so our whole class, all of our methods can use it. So we're just going to cut that and do MP here, and then set up our object above the onCreate method. So there we go. We basically set up a media player as well. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to say mp.start down here. and we're basically good to go. I mean, now basically what this OnLongClick is if we click and hold for like a second or something, I don't know the exact time, it's going to call this OnLongClick method instead of this OnClick method. And again, this can be applied to buttons and all that other stuff as well. And again, the difference between the media player and the SoundPool is the SoundPool will allow it to basically be loaded into memory, whereas, you know, the other way it's going to kind of stream it. It's going to take a while. So again, the SoundPool is just short clips that can be played quickly and effectively, and that's what you're going to use SoundPool for. Whereas you want a longer background sound, you're going to use the media player. So again, nothing too new. We set up a media player and this OnLongClick method for the most part, and that's all that's going to happen. Alright, so we're just basically going to start it. Now again, it's going to kind of, you know, if we do this click and hold a few times, it's going to play over itself for the most part, but that's not really going to be a problem we're going to worry about. Basically, this tutorial is just talking about the OnLongClick method. So yeah, it's not the most efficient little application, but that's fine. You know, just to introduce this new method that you guys can use for buttons or views or whatever you guys want to use this OnLongClick for. And let's get this started up here. Turn up the volume. Sound stuff. And if I just click quickly, it's still just playing our SoundPool, but if I click and hold, it starts our music. And then we can still click and it plays our SoundPool stuff, as you can see. And then there we go. I mean, there we go. I mean, that's pretty much all this tutorial is about the OnLongClick method that you guys can use for buttons, views, whatever you guys want to attach that to. So hopefully you liked that tutorial, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Peace.